Time now for sports on 104.7 The Cave. Here's Ned Reynolds.
Mike, the intern, Ned Reynolds, in the studio bright and early on a Monday morning. So, you shocked how the ladies' finals went down yesterday?
Not at all. The better team won. There's no question about that. South Carolina, just head and shoulders and strength-wise better than Iowa. Not so much so that Iowa didn't make it entertaining, but South Carolina's 38-0 to finish the year, and that doesn't happen by a fluke. And they did have one of the key players, Carmela Cardoso, in there. The big kid, she's 6'7" and about 220, somewhere around there, and she imposed her will on Iowa. 15 points, that's a good number, but 17 rebounds. She was in there holding the ball over her head. The Iowa kids could not keep up with that. And indeed, it was a significant victory for South Carolina. Now, Caitlin Clark, the player of the year, came out early, firing away, and this is one of the keys to the chronology of the game. Firing away, scoring big points. Iowa had a big lead at one time, let it go by the end of the first half. And for a few brief moments in the second half, Clark had some shining moments when she hit a couple of long bombs. But here's where the key comes in. Championship teams have great depth. And South Carolina, of their 87 to 75 was the final score. South Carolina won it. Of the 87 points, the South Carolina bench contributed 37 of those 87 points. Iowa had 75. Iowa's bench contributed 0. They just ran out of gas, folks. They didn't have anything left. Not their fault, not Coach Bluder's fault. It just was a matter of the way the teams were constructed, and South Carolina gets the national championship.
And it also proves what we always say about this game, and that it is a team sport and not down to the individual. As good as Clark actually is, she can't win that whole thing herself, and that proved it on the court. Now, I'm also very, very happy because my bracket did exactly what I thought it would. Purdue, UConn at the end. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I'll tell you, I do think it's going to be a very good basketball game, but I'm leaning right now toward Connecticut to win this thing. They are a 6.5-point favorite over Purdue, and they have Zach Edey at 7-4. Now, he is up against a physical match because the Connecticut postman is Donovan Clingan, and he's 7'2", but he's a sophomore now. He's a very, very, very good player. I see the two of them neutralizing each other, but the Huskies have a little bit better balance, in my opinion. Their guard play, forward play might be a little bit more superior, so I'm leaning toward Connecticut to win this thing.
See what happens. If Connecticut does, then I might win some money, my friend. All right, so there were some coaching changes announced this weekend. You surprised by those?
I am very much surprised. We'll begin with the first one, which was announced late last night, and that is John Calipari from Kentucky, or formerly from Kentucky, who told the Kentucky Wildcats fans that, he'd be returning for his 16th season. Sudden change of mind. And today, Calipari will be named as the new head coach at Arkansas down in Fayetteville. That's right, he's going from Lexington, Kentucky to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Why is this? Well, at Kentucky, Calipari was going to start his 16th season. Been there a long time. His team this year was under 500 at 16-17. Got knocked out of the NCAA by some team named Oakland in the first round. That didn't sit well with Kentucky's Blue Nation, and Calipari was under a lot of pressure. Well, even though he said he was coming back and he has a lifetime contract at Kentucky, I think he said to himself, do I have to put up with all of this? Hey, in Fayetteville, suddenly they're looking for a new head coach since Eric Musselman went out to Southern Cal. So, hey, I think I just might apply there. Did, and Arkansas said, come on in. And for $8 million a year, John Calipari will next season, be the head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. That was one. Now, the one that really surprised me was the new coach for the women's team at Tennessee. Her name is Kim Caldwell, and I'm not familiar with her at all. This is one of the most storied women's basketball programs in the country, the Tennessee Lady Vols. They're the only team ever in history to play in every single NCAA basketball tournament. That's from the very start. And Kelly Harper, who surprisingly was let go last week, she continued that tradition. She was a volunteer, an All-America under Pat Summitt. But here's Kim Caldwell coming in from Marshall University to take over the job. Evidently, she wowed the folks with her interview because this is a non-Kentucky Wildcat, or non-Tennessee Volunteer, I should say, coming in to take over one of the most storied basketball in women's basketball, one of the most storied teams in the country. Yes, I'm a little bit surprised.
Very, very strange stuff, but you know what? It is an ever-evolving sport. Speaking of which, college baseball, we had some action from our area college teams. How'd they do this week?
Bears won 2 out of 3 from Bradley up in Peoria. They pitched shutouts in the first 2 wins, 9-0 and 14-0. That in and of itself is miraculous since their pitching staff's been bombed. But Drury took 2 out of 3 from McKendree over in Lebanon, Illinois. And Drury is playing very well. They lead in the conference, the Great Lakes Valley Conference. So the Bears and Drury come away with pretty big weekends, and indeed Drury will have a game at midweek coming up. The Bears, hey, they're coming along and maybe getting a little bit better as the season wears on.
So we talked a little bit about this earlier. Got a big game tonight. Think I'm going to win my bracket?
Well, if you have Connecticut in your bracket, yes, I do think you'll win.
That's what I picked.
Leaning toward them to win. Connecticut is a 6.5-point favorite, and they're a better balanced team than Purdue, and that's not to knock Purdue. Zach Edey is a very dominant player. He's player of the year in this country, so indeed he is very, very much a power force. However, Connecticut has the 7'2" sophomore Donovan Clingan there, and he is very, very good. Only a sophomore, but he's improving to the point where he'll be a challenge for Edey. I see the two of them neutralizing each other, and that's when the guards and the forwards take over, and I think, in my opinion, Connecticut has a little bit better strength than Purdue, so I like Connecticut to win the national championship for a second straight year.
Well, it proves what happened with the ladies yesterday. Even though you might have one of the biggest guys in college basketball on your team, that doesn't mean you're going to win, even though that dude is huge. All right, Cardinals and Royals had some games this weekend. Are they in the winner's circle after all that action?
They split, as a matter of fact, and not in the way you might think. Everybody knew that Miami, of course, was going to eventually break out of their slump. They were 0-9 when they took the field. Well, you knew when they broke out of it that they would do so with some thunder, and they did at Busch Stadium. Miami scored 6 runs in the first inning, and that was a ball game. Miami beat the Cardinals 10-3 in their ball game yesterday, and I mean the Marlins were hitting the ball all over the lot. Cardinals fall to 5-5 on the year. Now, the Royals don't look now, but the Royals swept the Chicago White Sox. And Kansas City, folks, is 6-4 on the year. 6 wins, 4 losses. I know they had the hot spring, and yeah, they came out a little slow against the Minnesota Twins in their home opener, but indeed, the Royals are beginning to play some pretty good baseball, and they do have a formidable lineup. Is that to say they're a championship team? No, they aren't. Not yet. But watch out. They are very much improved, and they'll fool you. Kansas City, 6-4 on the year.
Obviously, my good friends are into racing, and they are very happy we continue to talk about that week in, week out. How excited were you after the big race in Virginia?
It was at Martinsville, Virginia is where they raced, and William Byron, who is absolutely red hot in the early going of NASCAR, holds off. As a matter of fact, Kyle Larson down the stretch and takes that checkered flag. So it's William Byron who gets the win. And this guy, he's a relatively young driver out on the circuit. He is tearing things up this year. This may be his year.
Fingers crossed for him. And Ned, you have a wonderful day. I will see you mañana.